Hiya, and welcome back to Password, the game that teaches us that, uh, that, I guess, even though it isn't. Anyways, let's just hop right in. I'm ready to completely forget about that. I rushed upstairs with a notable spring in my step, but stopped dead in my tracks as I went to make a move for the cupboard with the games. Roswell was sitting there, dazed and seemingly out of it. Thanatos, on the other hand, was seemingly waiting for me to arrive. What's going on? Come here! Roswell's got something for you! I shuffled closer to see exactly what Thanatos was referring to. As Roswell was sitting on the beanbag, he had one hand cradled in his lap with the other resting beside him, holding something that looked very familiar. Wait, that's... In his hand was another medal, this one with the prominent letter V in the ends with the ends all curvy. More importantly, should he be in bed? Like, great, he found a medal, but... Dave, you need to get out of here. His fingers flexed around the metal disc just a little, but his overall grip was slack. What? Dave, he is... Roswell struggled to lift the metal, breathing hard. His hand was shaking as he held it out for me to take. He's about to... It was a trap. And my fingers barely brushed the metal before sharp pain in my skull made me black out. Things were going so well. Things seemed to be taking a turn for the better as much as it could be, but Thanatos had decided to knock me out again. He had been doing it more lately, and it was starting to mess with my understanding of what exactly it was I was meant to be doing in any given moment. Questioning if I was awake or asleep, plus dealing with the disorientation afterwards and the immediate pain at the start. The only consistent thing I knew was that whatever I was about to see, I wasn't going to like it. That much should be a given. Even as I was unconscious, it hurt. It hurt in a way I couldn't quite understand, but I could feel the lingering ache in my head all the same. I was no stranger to Thanatos' habits of putting me under, but why he was doing it still eluded me. Maybe he just enjoyed doing it, maybe it had a greater purpose. All I knew for certain is that I wanted it to stop. When my eyes opened, I knew where I was immediately. It wasn't the first time that I wasn't in control either, just a passenger in my own body. I yawned, pulling out my phone. Damn. I flicked through my contacts and hovered over Roswell's name, before flicking over to Dean's and hitting dial. A few seconds later, he picked up. Dave, what's up, buddy? I missed my bus, I think. Oh, shoot, how'd that happen? I don't know. I was napping, I think, but something wasn't adding up. I was sitting there and I just missed my bus. If this was a dream, fine. If this was a memory, then what was traumatic about this event that was making me remember? I hadn't been hit or something bad had happened, had it? So to answer my question, a screeching car in the distance caught my attention and I stood suddenly. I feel my first stand on end as the car came speeding around the corner and down the street towards me. Dave, everything alright? How the car was moving was off. Aside from fast, it wasn't traveling in a straight line at all. Dave! Things went black just before the car crashed into the bus stop. I feel my body tensing up in anticipation of the impact, but it never came. I could feel what was happening next before I could see it. The heat, the way the air felt heavy as I breathed in. It was night, though the raging fire in front of me made it as light as day. In my hand was Thanatos, limp for some reason, though deep down I knew I could figure out why. Despite still being on the edge of the driveway, I was close enough that the heat of the fire was radiating off the house in waves. I was cold in another way, somewhere deep inside. Thanatos. Part of me was hoping that he was still alive. Part of me was hoping, wondering if this was just some sick trick or dream within a dream. Why did you... I stood there, just watching the fire for a bit, stunned and sick, sad and scared. Hang on. Check something. Where were the others? Why was I outside? What happened with Jack, Dominic, or Memphis? Why was the house on fire? On top of that, why was I not wearing a shirt? Had I been sleeping? Just what had happened that led to this moment? These questions were going to go unanswered as once more things faded to black. My head still hurt, body aching as I felt myself begin to settle again. But this time, it felt slightly more comfortable. As I opened my eyes, I found myself tucked into my bed. A light slap on my face confirmed I was awake properly now, and I carefully sat up to get an idea of what had happened. Not that there was anything to go off. I was in bed, everything was as I left it. Someone must have brought me here after finding me passed out in the rec room. I checked my phone to see what the time was, and I'd somehow slept the day away and it was now morning again. With a groan, I rolled out of bed and wondered if there was a way to stop myself from sleeping so much. I threw on some pants and a shirt, forgoing my usual orange hoodie for the time being. Maybe it was the lingering thoughts of the fire that didn't make me feel cold, but I just needed to be moving. Maybe find Thanatos or even Roswell to get some answers. The house was quiet, and from what I could tell, I was the only one up. The thought of the fire was lingering on my mind, and I found my eyes looking around for anything that might be amiss. Did we have a fire extinguisher? Not that it'd help if the whole house went up. What about an escape route? Could we use the dinner bell? Though it seemed like the only time we'd used it was for the novelty rather than anything consistent. Minutes ticked by as I wandered back and forth in thought. I'd even considered going to get coffee until a small amount of movement caught my eye, and I looked over to the corridor leading towards the basement.
Dave?
Hiya. Roswell? Immediately I looked around for Thanatos and breathed out upon not seeing him, shaking my head. For a moment I thought, well...
Thought what?
Thanatos, after yesterday?
That right.
I gave Roswell a look. It was good that he seemed better compared to the day before, but I wondered why. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling, well, better than I did yesterday, that's for sure.
Do you know why?
Shy of bed rest, it'd likely be something Oswin drugged me with. Said it'd take some time to kick in, but it should get me going.
Wait, when did that happen?
When,
He seemed to think it over, scratching his chin.
I guess it'd have been sometime after you found me in the rec room.
After Thanatos knocked me out, you mean?
After he knocked us both out.
But you woke up sometime after that?
Yeah, to Oswin injecting me with something.
He really needs to stop doing that.
Given how much better I'm feeling by comparison, I think I'd be willing to give him a pass on it.
Grumbling, I shook my head. So, no Thanatos, and no idea why he did what he did. Again, Roswell seemed to be lost in thought, a small frown forming the longer he didn't say anything. Roswell?
Sorry, maybe. That's the short answer anyway.
And the long answer?
Do you remember much about what happened when you came to the rec room yesterday?
I showed up, you had a medal, and said,
It was a trap. Yeah.
He sat down on the stairs, chin cradled in his hands as he waited for me to join him.
Admittedly, I don't really remember how I got to the rec room. Just that I was kind of in a daze. I remember running into Thanatos somewhere just outside my room, though, and he must have led me there.
And the medal?
That part I remember. He handed it over to me shortly after I collapsed into the beanbag.
Alright, and the medal is where now?
In my room, but when he handed it over, I remember him saying something like, "Now we just have to wait for the hyena to show up." And a few minutes later you did.
You knew it was a trap just from that?
You tell me, Dave. I don't think throwing you a party upon your arrival was the plan.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I didn't think the trap was going to be a literal sound trap, though.
What does he get out of knocking us both out, though? And why was I out until this morning, but you were woken up?
I couldn't tell you. Maybe because I was being medicated was why I woke up. Not that I was awake for long before sleeping again.
Remind me to take a page out of Tyson's book when I see him again. Thanatos needs to stop being a jerk and knocking people out.
Catch him off guard near an open window and you might be able to enjoy a little bit of defenestration.
Roswell, it's too early for long words.
I mean, throwing him out the window.
You know, I'd probably be fine with that, if only once.
So, what happens now?
I don't think there's much to really talk about, is there? Except... defenestrate that damn rat. This bitch empty. Yeet! He turned to me with a wry smile, almost as if he knew what was going to be said before I did.
Except what's happening later today with Dominic.
Right.
Well, I don't think there's much to talk about, is there?
Sure there is. Oswin is going sure, but are you fine being the one to go with him?
Being fine with it is relative. All things considered, it makes sense that I'd go. With how I'm feeling now, minus the nerves, I could probably move a mountain.
Even though it's dangerous?
That's where the nerves are. I guess I could rely on being lucky and things are going to turn out okay, but, well...
That's it? You're just going to hope you're lucky. What if something happens?
Then we deal with it then. I don't think we're really able to plan around something going wrong out there. Or at least I'm not going to have many options once I'm out there.
What of us back here?
You'll have Benson plus everyone else to formulate a plan or an escape potentially. I'd probably leave that to Benson to know what's best.
Right.
Do we know when it's happening at least?
No, just that it's going to be happening today at some point.
Alright. Well, I should probably put some time aside to get a few things prepared just in case. Mind if I borrow your flashlight?
Yeah, of course. You'll need to get back if it's dark at all.
Thanks. Which really only leaves one thing.
Which is what?
To wait, really. Beyond me mentally preparing myself, of course.
Nothing else? Just waiting?
Well, I could go for some coffee. Not to mention, well, I did also have a favor to ask.
What's the favor?
So I imagine that while I'm mentally preparing for the worst, I'm not going to want to be distracted. So to that end, I think Orlando might need some company today.
Why Orlando? Not that I mind, he's my boyfriend and I would have done it anyway, just why ask?
Given his dad on the mountain, I imagine a potential confrontation is, doing wonders for his nerves.
Right, I guess that makes sense.
It'll be easy, just take his mind off things with games or alike until it's time. Once I leave with Oswin, then it's going to get a little harder just with, well, the waiting, I imagine.
And you're going to spend all this time by yourself, preparing?
Not all of it. I want to talk to Tyson at some point. Maybe Sal.
How come?
Make a calculated gamble. If there are any problems, I trust those two will be able to help Benson the most.
Not someone like Dean?
Dean is the backup. In case something goes wrong in there, he's the best one to try and lead a rescue mission. Not that I'd be for that, but in the worst case scenario, we need to be ready.
I guess so. I wasn't sure I really believed him, but I think a lot of it was buried by my uncertainty of how the day was going to go. Just coffee. Let's do coffee and wait for the others.
Sounds good.
Wait, do I still have this one app on my computer? I don't. Roswell and I made some coffee and sat in the dining room. He seemed to drink his down as if there was nothing wrong on the horizon, while I sipped on mine and finished it off only once it had gone cold. Slowly the others started to file in, quietly sitting down at the table, but it was clear we were all troubled. Likely about the same thing. It was clear when Roswell got up from the table and left, off to mentally prepare or whatever, and we all looked at one another once he was gone. So, today's the day? Yeah, sort of, I guess. And we get to go home? Assuming everything goes well with the deal, right? Seemed like Roswell was feeling better too. That's what he said before everyone else got up, that he was feeling better anyway. Ah, alright. Alright. How are you feeling, by the way, Dave? You gave us a bit of a scare when you didn't come back yesterday. Same as the rest of you, I guess. Though, can someone fill in the blanks? What happened after I blacked out? Ah, well, when you didn't come back, we all went to the rec room to see what happened, found you and Roswell passed out, and that's about it, really. Not entirely true. He's forgetting the part where Roswell had a medal with him. Virgo, I think. No Thanatos? Wasn't there as far as I remember. Well, there was someone else. Who? Oswin. Right, he showed up shortly after we did and checked you both over. Then when he was convinced you were both fine, took Roswell away and put him in bed. Left putting you in bed to me. Oh, well, thanks for putting me somewhere comfortable at least. It was strange. It was as if he knew that you two were unconscious, though. It's a shame we only heard about this after you got back downstairs. Something about him wasn't adding up. Don't worry, I have, questions that Benson's willing to answer later about just that. It's a shame you missed waffles and chicken, too. It's fine. Maybe I can have chicken and waffles tomorrow night. When we're home, or, yeah, whenever that happens. Hiya. Yeen was eepy. He was all the eepy. So, we're just left to wait? Sounds like it, yeah. I thought back to what Roswell said, the favor he asked. Hey, Orlando, how are you holding up given what's about to happen? What? Me? As good as I can be. Which, admittedly, isn't all that good. Alright, well, let's go play some games or something. Try and keep our mind off things until it's time. Whenever that might be. In that case, I guess I better keep an eye out for Dom, then. Unless we want him potentially busting the door down. I looked to the other two, knowing that Roswell was going to talk to them later. They seemed to follow suit in answering the question all the same, though. I might go work out then. Something light just to keep my body doing something. Not a bad idea. I was considering the pool, but perhaps staying indoors is still the right call. Nodding to myself, I figured this was for the best. Roswell wanted to talk to them both, then them being in the same place was likely to make things easier. Haas decided to stick with Dean so he wasn't alone, and we all split off. With the exception of Roswell, we each had a buddy with us so we weren't alone. But being alone was the least of our troubles, and I started to understand just how right Roswell was to ask the favor. Orlando, despite the controller in his hands and looking somewhat relaxed in the beanbag, was still trembling as he slowly played. I wasn't sure what to say or do in a situation like this, because all there was to do was wait. Dave? Yeah? Can you stop staring? It's kind of freaking me out. Oh, sorry. Is waiting for this whole thing to go down bothering you? Yeah, I spoke with Roswell before everyone got up, and it's just so surreal that we're at this point. I'm surprised that he's still able to smile being put into danger like that. He's doing it for us, though. And maybe dying is helping him be brave. Or reckless. How are you, though? Worried about so much. You're at the top of the list, Trevor. But what's to come? I'm just worried that I might not be enough. He reached over and squeezed my hand lightly, sighing.
I saw that you have 1,1k subscribers on YouTube. Congratulations,
No.
Theta, you deserve it.
Oh my god, thank you. I know. It's amazing. Thank you for the congratulations. Thank you. It's amazing. He reached over and squeezed my hand lightly, sighing. Dominic can't get here soon enough. I just want this all over. Even knowing that Roswell's going to be at risk. It can't be helped. No amount of talking to him would change his mind either. I just hope that he'll be back sooner rather than later. You and me both. Minutes started to tick by, soon turning into hours. The two of us just pushing down the fact that we were waiting for so long with nothing happening. No word from the others either. Eventually, the waiting became too much and we wandered downstairs in need of refreshment. Anything? Not yet. Been watching, but yeah, nothing. Nothing from the front either. Do you think maybe it changed his mind that the deal is off? If that's the case, then we would have seen something by now, right? I guess you're right. Seen any of the others? Roswell was wandering around before looking for sale, but that was hours ago. And he never showed up again? Well, I've been outside, so if you returned from the basement, I didn't see him. How about you, Hoss? Same. I've been out the front, so similar situation. So we go looking for any of them? I doubt anything would have happened to them. Which almost certainly means something has, knowing our luck. Hey now, don't go saying things like that! Tea? Anyone want some tea to take the edge off? I'll have some coffee. Same if you're putting a pot on. Tea for me, please. Alright, I'll be back. He wandered off, leaving the rest of us to linger in the foyer. So, I guess just back to waiting, right? What time is it anyway? Good question. Dean? About 5. Sun's already starting to set, so we'd be around then anyway. He really isn't coming, is he? Unless he wanted to lead us through the dark forest. You don't think that's the point, do you? To make it difficult to return? A frustrated yell echoed from above us down to the foyer, quickly followed by the hurried stomps of someone coming downstairs. Where is he? Oswald had stopped about halfway down the stairs towards us, breathing heavy and bracing himself on the railing. Who? Thanatos! What did he do? Did something happen? Hiya. He was gone before answering Dean's question, though one look between each of us told me that we were all intending on following. Orlando detoured to go tell Haas what had happened, whereas Dean and I were following as close behind Oswin as we could, only just catching him head into Roswell's bedroom. As expected, Roswell was here, but how he looked was worrying. He's unconscious? Someone sedated him. He's out cold. But who? My assumption would be that Thanatos is behind this, or who knows for certain just what happened in this room. Wait, you didn't sedate him? I can understand how you came to that conclusion, but no. Given I spent a good deal of effort getting him to the point of being able to leave with me, putting him back under right before Dominic shows up doesn't make much sense now, does it?
It's time to drink water.
How do you know Dom was about to show up?
It's time to drink water. It's time to drink water.
Ah, fuck. Well,
It's time to drink water.
we're fucked. I don't. The timing is suspicious as it is, and I would have assumed that if he had shown up, you would have let someone know. Or should. Someone would have anyway. In light of such news, I can only assume he's yet to arrive. I approached carefully, looking at Roswell. He just seemed to be sleeping as if nothing was wrong at all. My eyes traveled over to the medal sitting on his bedside table. It was here like he said, and I wandered over and picked it up. Ah, yes, the Aries medal. Not Virgo? No, who told you that? Orlando did earlier today. I can understand the confusion, but I assure you that one is Aries. No idea where he picked it up from, truth be told, but if it's found, that's only a good thing. But the symbol is a V, isn't it? Dave, this is hardly the time. Can't you see the problem we have in front of us? I don't know what you expect out of either of us, Oswin. We know as much as you do, and between the three of us, you're the only one qualified to do anything about it. Oswin grumbled, shaking his head. There is nothing I can do. If anything, we're now faced with a very real problem should Dominic arrive. Well, that's all there is to it, Rat. You'll just have to pick someone else to go with you. Oswin's attention was locked on Roswell the moment Dean stopped talking, and he slowly nodded. Yes, I suppose I will. Dean looked briefly to me before he went back to Oswin, scratching his neck. I volunteer. Noted. Good. I'll get ready then. I never said yes. But who else will be willing to go? They'll be able to go. We need to find Thanatos. If he's behind this, then there's probably a reason. The reason was that he didn't want Roswell going, if any. It didn't feel like he was forcing someone else specific to go, instead just that it wasn't him. Agreed. I'll tuck Roswell into bed before I go searching. I'll head back downstairs and let the others know what's happened. Dean was barely out of the room before I could hear him run into Haas and Orlando just outside the room. Heard explanation later, and they wandered off quickly in search of relaying the news to Tyson and Sal, along with finding the rat. Dave. I looked over as Oswin was carefully picking Roswell up, shifting him in his arms before sliding him carefully into bed once the covers were pulled back. We should have a talk. I don't like the sound of that. It's nothing serious, just overdue. What's it about? Benson told me that you were asking about whether or not Roswell and I were related again. Ah, right. Did he also tell you that he was willing to answer whatever questions I had after you two had left? He did. And I have a trade I'd like to offer you. You're going to ask me to go with you into the woods. Too obvious? It's a terrible idea is what it is. Dean's better suited to it. He's at least good at outdoor stuff. True, he'd make the better choice normally, but there's things that need to be said beyond the range at which a certain rat can listen in. Things about your father, things about Roswell and myself, things just better coming from my mouth. As opposed to Benson's. Your choices are between me potentially lying to you on the way to me being held as collateral to get you all home safely, or half-truths from Benson. Pick your poison. So you'll tell me once we're on the way? I'll need some time to grab a few things beforehand, but yes, I don't imagine Dominic is going to mind too much so long as we're quiet and subtle about the finer points. And there's no other option? You can't tell me now and instead take like anyone else? This is the offer I give you. Either I tell you and only you, or I take someone else in there and we make the exchange as originally planned. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. And the others are just going to let you get away with this? If you volunteer, I imagine the others will fight against the suggestion, but I do believe I made it clear that the decision at the end of the day remains with me. Something in me broke a little. Could have just said that I didn't want to know, that I didn't need to know, but he hit me where it hurt most. Bringing up my dad after knowing that the two of them had talked. Okay, I hate this, but okay. Trust me, I feel that once I've imparted the knowledge to you, you know how to put it to its best use. Beyond just walking down the driveway now and risk missing Dominic, heading into the woods together is the only option. We headed downstairs together, but I was dazed, looking somewhere far off without acknowledging those around me. Oswin had split off from me at some point, presumably going to search for Thanatos, whereas I figured I should be keeping a watch for when Dominic arrived. I wondered if I was getting numb from everything happening, from all the worry and fear building up to where I just couldn't feel it anymore. It was a strange feeling, almost like being trapped. But trapped in a way that was different to the times that Thanatos had put me under. Different to the times where I just wasn't sure what to do. And different to anything else I had felt before, but I was sure of one thing at the very least. I was giving up. I didn't feel like I had any control anyway, so why fight it? What things I had managed to figure out, the people I'd managed to save, was any of it my doing? Just give up, Dave. There's no point in worrying about it. Heard the back door click open and Sal wandered up to join me. I barely turned to acknowledge he was there, still lost within my head, but he spoke anyway. 2 things. The first, are you alright? I'm fine. It was a lie and he knew it too, but given what he'd likely been told already, he just nodded and let it go. The second was that we found Thanatos. And did he... I don't know, he's not talking. At all? Just stating that it's out of his hands now, that we're in uncharted territory for him. Oh. We've brought him into the dining room if you wanted to talk to him, or ask anything of him. He talks to you, most from what I understand. I get the impression that he made this happen just so that what happens next will happen. He's forcing what's about to happen, which is something bad. And there's nothing we can do? Thanatos said it already. It's out of its hands now, and it's out of ours too. Oh, well, It's alright. I've gotten used to not knowing anything, Sal. Just look forward to being home soon. It's what I'm doing. He nodded slowly and headed back inside, though I heard him hesitate before going inside. I was back to waiting, occasionally looking up in case Dominic had shown up. Not that I was alone long. Oswin breathed out into the evening air as he stepped up next to me. I caught the vague smile on his face, and I wondered how he was able to do it. Not fretting too much, are we? I don't know. Understandably, you'd be nervous, anxious, or any combination of emotions. Then why are you smiling? I looked at him again briefly, and noticed the telltale signs I recognized in my own face. He was scared. Smiling, but scared. What other choice do we have? We'll make our exchange, I'll stay, and you'll head back. Get your friends and go home. Me? Well, do you think he'll... It's possible, but I've made my peace. He chuckled, shaking his head and wiping his eyes without taking his glasses off. Benson is livid. And he's not going to stop you? He can't. That was my decision. Punishment or comeuppance for everything that's gone wrong during your stay here. What? I'll explain more when we're on our way. He stretched and gave me a once-over. You should go get your flashlight. It's only getting darker. Yeah, good idea. I went back up and grabbed it, taking another look around the room for anything that could have been important, but found nothing. My wait for when we were meant to head off was spent at the top of the stairs, looking down at the foyer. I could hear the others talking about what to do with Thanatos, Benson's irritated voice amongst them. No doubt his mood was soured after Oswin had filled him in on what he decided was going to happen. Though given the lack of attention I was getting, I could only assume the others hadn't been told of Oswin's decision. Eventually I stepped back outside, noticing Oswin lingering about as if just waiting for Dominic's arrival without bothering to prepare anything. But we weren't waiting for long. From the shadows, Dominic emerged and he started to make his way over to us. Sorry I'm late. You never gave us a time as to when you were going to be arriving, did you? Oh, then forget the apology. We have a walk to get to. Yeah. I guess you're right. Not so fast! Orlando hurried out, stopping just before me and placing a hand on my shoulder. What's happening? Is it time? It better be. Just, who's going? Me. And me. Okay, but really, who's going with Othwin? I took Orlando's hand in my own and flashed him a wry smile. His confusion turned to worry quick, and I could feel him tremble as I held his hand. No. Yeah, this has to happen this way. And there's no other options? Nothing else we can do instead? It's this way or no way. I caught Dom giving Oswin an odd look. Whereas I chose not to expose Oswin's lie, to try and memorize the features of Orlando's face. I'll be back soon, don't worry. I'll wait right here for you, as long as it takes. He leaned forward and kissed me sweetly on the muzzle before stepping back on the verge of tears. See you soon, Orlando. Turned back to Dominic, drawing his attention away from Oswin and giving him a single nod. Let's get going. I chose not to look back. I had to keep looking forward, otherwise the pit in my stomach was going to make me throw up. Maybe not that, but instead be unable to move. Dominic led the way forward, Oswin beside me as we followed close behind. My flashlight for the time being was unneeded, but we were quickly losing any light coming from the mansion. As I stumbled, Oswin reached out and kept me upright, seemingly distracted. Dominic, you don't mind if we fill the silence with some chatting, do you? Dom didn't stop, and he seemed to wave Oswin off with a grunt. Oswin looked to me, his voice dropping in volume. Well, we're out here now. We're free to talk. About... I assumed you had questions. I assumed that you had answers, or, if not answers, things you wanted to tell me yourself. That is true, yes. He rummaged in his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Is that the same one from your lab? Yes, though given the circumstances, I'm going to give it to you now. He offered it out and I took it, unsure of what to do with it. You could have just given me this back at the house. Back then, I assumed that I was going to be giving it to someone else. Roswell, you mean? Yes, Roswell. It was a photo, right? Of what? That I'd ask for you to see for yourself, but only once you're back at the mansion. Why? Aside from it being dark, I feel this might be something worth having a safe space to properly digest what's in that picture. It's not something gross, is it? I wouldn't say so, no. But given we're meant to be following behind Dominic to wherever he's taking us, now isn't the best time. For now, put it in your pocket, if it'll fit. I did so and hurried along to keep what distance I once had from Dom consistent. Alright, so start talking about my dad. I suppose I should start with a question. Did Thanatos ever tell you what David saw? You did. It was a shooting. Right, when I told you why Carol was here. Dad wanted to bring Memphis in, but also save my life. A sentiment that, as you know, couldn't be accomplished. He chose you over taking down one of the most dangerous men I know of anyway. But why? A father, a decent one at least, will do anything for his son. One that is not so great might choose differently. So what, I still had to suffer because Dad wasn't around anymore. Even now I feel like, sometimes, that you should have died? Not exactly closer to wanting to die, or at least that's how it was until a week or so ago. Oswin grunted but let me continue. But things are different now. I feel not entirely better, but a little bit. I want to live. It's hard, but I think that's what Dad would have wanted. I'd say so. What about you? What about me? Benson said you always wanted to be a dad, but life said otherwise. Did he now? Well, yeah, said that's why you interacted the way you did with Roswell. Yes, I suppose that's not entirely inaccurate. So, are you related, or what? Oswin breathed out through his nose, shaking his head. The photo explains that better. How could a photo explain that better when I'm just asking you directly? Well, answer the question! Alright. Yes, we're related. So, like an uncle? That's a close enough description. That wasn't a yes. If you're not an uncle, then what? Uncle is sufficient, though frankly I don't feel like family, but rarely, very rarely does that boy make me feel good. Good? Just good. I wouldn't go putting a label on it like love or some such. But I do care for the boy, in a way I don't really know how or why. Maybe it is love after all. And Roswell knows? I wouldn't put it past him to assume that we're related, though I haven't explicitly told him that we share a family tree. Which means you two had met before this vacation started. That's right. But you barely leave the house. Also correct. Roswell has been to the mansion before. Yes. I continued walking alongside Oswin, thoughts swimming in my head. Thoughts that kept circling back round to wanting to talk to Roswell again to get his side of the story. Why hide any of this? Why not say anything sooner? Why lie about it? Don't think too hard on it, Dave. Because there's not much to really digest. Everything I've told you doesn't affect much now anyway. So when I get back to the mansion, what do you want me to do? Pardon? I don't want anything from you aside from getting off this mountain. But then what's significant about the letter? I wrote a message on the back. A message for Roswell. And you want me to make sure he reads it? You can read it too, just... It's more important that he gets the message as well. Sure, I can do that. Again, we continued to walk, silence stretching out with Dominic occasionally looking over his shoulder at us to make sure we were still following. It was hard to make out his fur in the dark, the only thing helping being his tank top. Plus my flashlight, though the darkness felt so oppressive at times I wasn't sure it was working. Dave. I almost jumped when he said my name after so long without saying anything. What? I'm sorry. For what? For you getting wrapped up in things. If I had been a better man, a stronger man, then perhaps I could have thought of a way your father might still be with us. And you wouldn't be on this mountain. You can't change the past, don't worry about it. Perhaps not, though I still wonder how much Thanatos has properly orchestrated everything that's happened. I almost stopped walking to look at him, but followed after when he didn't break stride. What do you mean? Well, given Memphis keeps his list of associates either flagrantly out in the open or hidden somewhere where no one would know to look, getting anything of value information-wise would be difficult. Makes sense, but it doesn't answer the question. What I mean is that your father only arrived on this mountain because I called. The time you pointed out that I hadn't done business with Memphis, while I had spoken to him, there was no way the police would know that. But why? To take down Memphis? Because Thanatos said I should. And you listened. When a machine with multi-universal awareness suggests you do something because it'd be beneficial, you typically listen. Huh. I guess, but what if he was lying? I imagine that were the case you'd be dead. Or perhaps you never would have come to the mansion. Or I would have tried applying for something to let me practice medicine again. Really? After what happened with the trial? It would have been a long shot, but I do thoroughly enjoy being a chemist. Enough to try? To leave the mansion? There will be a time where I'll have to leave the mansion eventually, Dave. I do not intend on dying here. I would hope no one would. Right. We're getting close. It had been the first time Dom had spoken since we left, and I was only then conscious of how sore my feet were from the walk. Just how long had we been going for anyway? Nothing else was said until we hit a point where a soft light was lingering somewhere between the trees, and eventually we'd arrived. It was a cabin, or given how run down it was probably closer to a shack. Still, Dom led the way up to the front door and ushering us inside. I entered first and froze in place upon seeing who was in the room. Only moved when Ozden eased me aside so we could enter as well. Dominic stepped in behind us both and closed the door behind him. Well, look who the cat dragged in! Or Bear! Let's go with Bear! Jack's attention shifted immediately over to Dom, and he seemed to light up, throwing his arms up quickly in a greeting. Dom! You're back! It's so good to see you! Jack went to get closer, but Dom quickly shook his head, looking to the third person in the room. We all looked over to the figure hunched over a table, facing away from us. He seemed to be playing cards or something, but it was hard to really tell. Just dropping one of these off before heading out again. Well, can I come this time, at least? I'm bored out of my skull here! Take it up with the boss. He can go, just be quick about it. The gravelly voice came from the dragon as he rose from the table. Remember the look he gave me as he caught a glance of us over his shoulder. It was fleeting but oppressive all the same. Good to see you again, Oswin. There was a low chuckle that came out of his mouth before he turned around fully and came closer. Dominic and Jack seemed to back off, looking anywhere but him as he came to stand in the middle of the room to stare at us. Who's the kid? I went to answer, but he stepped in quickly, grabbing me by the jaw and looking me over. Ah, you're that kid that came to my house that one time. He let me go with a rough shove backwards into Oswin, who braced my fall and caught me by my shoulders. Well, alright, I see how it is. You want to know how we got on the mountain. Consider trade, then. He gestured for Dom to come forward and whispered something into his ear, getting a reaction. But boss! Need me to spell it out? Just get it done! Dominic's eyes went to me before he turned to Oswin. Let's get going. In a huff, Dominic left, keeping the door open but seemingly unimpressed. As I went to move, a meaty hand landed on my shoulder and gripped tight. Now, where do you think you're going, kid? Huh? I'm gonna go find out where... Started to tremble, piecing it together. I'd hoped that I had just misunderstood, or that I imagined things, but Dominic had been talking to Oswin and not me. That wasn't the deal! So I don't offer the boys collateral. I didn't offer the boys collateral. He can't offer you anything anyway. See, that's where you're wrong. You can just clam up the moment the kids get off the mountain. You can just as happily not tell us anything. Then it's us that get nothing out of this deal. His grip tightened more and I gasped slightly, tensing up to try and not give away how much it was hurting. Taking the kid, though? Yeah, I think you'd be more willing to be helpful once you've told the rest how to get home. Then we can really start discussing this as adults. But he was struggling, and I was struggling too. If Roswell had come in my place, would he be right where I was standing instead? Would he be held hostage for the sake of the rest of us? So hurry along before Dominic leaves without you. Then head on back home. Tell the kids' friends where they can get off the mountain. Then come back here. Then if you're quick enough, there might be some of this hyena left. Oswald looked at me, torn between apologetic and angry, but he turned quickly, heading for the door. I'll be back. As the door closed behind him, things went quiet, and I was left alone with Memphis. Well, sit down. When I didn't move, he grabbed me by the throat and lazily threw me towards one of the chairs. Even though it was clear he hadn't put his full strength into it, my neck throbbed from how it had been momentarily crushed. Memphis dropped down into his chair and started shuffling the cards up, watching me carefully as I slowly lowered myself into the other chair. Jack, meanwhile, remained where he was after Memphis had started speaking. Jack, what are you standing around for? He took my seat! Then go find another. There isn't one. Then kick the kid out and I'll deal us up. What? I sank in my chair, realizing I shouldn't have said anything. Go on, haven't got all day. What are you going to do with me? Me? Nothing. Jack here, on the other hand, well, I figure you'll be great friends. My blood ran cold as Jack wandered around to stand behind me, placing his hands slowly on my shoulders. Oh, don't you worry, boss, we met before. This the kid you ran into by the mill? Yep, this is him. The one you let get away. I was just playing around, boss. I didn't hurt him none. Well, you should've. Still could be arranged. Whatever you do, just keep it down. I reckon Oswald is going to drag his feet getting back here. Do you think so? Seems not like you're switching things up on him. Do I look like I care? Works for me! I was then half shoved out of the chair as Jack sat down as Memphis starting to deal out some cards. My eyes went to the door, wondering if I should run for it. Chances are Dominic and Oswald were long gone, so if I could slip by, I might escape. So I started to edge towards the door, but got a couple steps there before I heard a distinct click. Don't even think about it! Memphis had a gun pointed at me, something that looked far too large to be comfortable in one hand, but he didn't seem to be bothered in the slightest. Carefully, I raised my hands and backed away from the door, staring at the barrel of the gun as it was trained on me. Jack, take him into the other room. Where we sleep? Nah, the other room. Jack was beside me in a flash and started walking us across to the hallway. There were only 2 doors. One door was left ajar, and from what I saw, there were beds. The other, though, was closed, up until Jack kicked it open and threw me forward, so I landed on my knees. It was cold and dusty. I could feel a draft coming in from somewhere. But above me, hanging from the ceiling, were hooks. Some broken, others that looked cruel and sharp. What a pain in the ass! Dom gets to have all the fun! Jack had me back up and pushed me into the corner right before knocking me back down again. So here's the deal. You sit here, you sit there, keep quiet and just wait. You're not going to hurt me? Oh, I can rough you up some if you really want. Maybe pick up where we left off. He kicked me lightly when I didn't respond, shaking his head. Nah, I can't go having any fun without Dom saying it's fine. Stupid deal! You chase one hyena for fun and the boss grounds you. You never had to do that, you know. But I wanted to, Dave. Now, here's how this is going to work. You're going to sit right there in the corner and keep quiet. But given you just tried running away, how about we do something about that? Upon catching sight of the knife he had tucked away, I froze, only realizing what he'd done once he stepped away again. My ankle has been chained to the wall, a lock keeping the manacle closed. Now you sit tight and don't make a sound, Dave. Otherwise, I don't think the boss is going to like coming in here to keep you quiet himself. With a wave, Jack left the room and closed the door behind him. I could hear him wander away, then the muffled sounds of him talking with Memphis about something. Try not to waste the effort by listening in. Only because the sight of the hooks instead had my attention. This was the place Orlando was looking for. This was the place that he'd seen. This was the place where... Trembling in the cold, I tried to ball up in order to keep warm. Yelling for help wasn't going to help because there was no one around. If anything, I was in more danger if I said a word. So I started to cry, quietly, cold and scared, worried for what was about to happen. It was all I had left. Oh. After a few minutes to myself, I remembered the envelope in my pocket. With nothing else to do, I pulled it out and weighed it in my hands. An envelope from Oswin, meant for Roswell, and now in my hands. A few more seconds, I carefully opened it, reaching in and looking at the photo. I'm just mentally preparing myself, because I might start crying. I might actually start crying. I wasn't sure what I was looking at first. It could have been the darker combination of things distracting me, but it was clear as day. This was a photo of Roswell when he was very young. The woman next to him would no doubt be his mother, but why was she so familiar? Florencia. Trailed off, unsure of how I knew that. It made sense after what Oswin had said. It'd mean that Oswin was Roswell's uncle if Florencia was his mom, right? Why didn't I remember seeing her? It would have been so long ago, but why did I know the name, the face? My head started to hurt and I tried to focus. What did it mean? How did I know this was for Florencia, huh? But then came the question of the father. Maybe this woman wasn't Florencia, instead the father was going to be Oswin's brother? I didn't understand. This was a rabbit, or a hare? I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Either way, this wasn't Roswell's dad, or at least it couldn't be. Roswell wasn't half rabbit. You couldn't have half species, not like that anyway. Carefully I looked at the man's features. He looked like a magician, or maybe it was just the fancy cut of his coat. His white fur did remind me a little of the Easter Bunny, though. Oswald said it'd be fine if I read the note, so long as Roswell got it too. I wasn't sure if the rule still applied, given the assumption was that I'd be the one getting back. Still, what harm could it be? Hang on, I'm gonna check something real quick. The message was simple and to the point. I figured that there would have been something more, something profound maybe, just not this. I read the words again, finding myself smirking slightly. They were nice words. Words that I was looking forward to hearing again myself. I tucked the photo back into my pocket and went back to waiting. So I waited and waited. I heard Dominic come back and someone else leave. I could hear hushed voices between those still here, but nothing else. No one came to check on me. That didn't make the cold any easier. I huddled up in the corner and just waited. Someone would come for me. Someone would find me. Eventually. Time continued to pass long into the night, to the point I could hear someone turning in and entering the adjoining room where the beds were. I wasn't so concerned for what was going to happen to me or when someone would be back to collect me. I might have registered the grumbling in my stomach as hunger. Trembling in the draftiness of the room, I wondered if I was going to catch a cold, which, given everything else going on, would have been a lot less dire than ending up dead or otherwise. Must have been fading in and out of consciousness, too, because at some point I could have sworn I saw Dominic standing in the room with me, his dark fur blending in with the shadows. It wasn't until he spoke that I realized I wasn't hallucinating and found myself a lot more awake. The boss is asleep. Oh, okay. He sat down, breathing out. Jack has gone for a walk, too. My lack of response caused him to sit there staring at me for a few moments before he spoke again. Hungry? Why hasn't Oswald come back yet? How long has it been? That wasn't what I asked. I shrank back into the corner and again he shook his head. But hours. So are you hungry or not? A little, maybe. He pulled out some jerky from his back pocket and threw it to me, laying in front of me on the floor. Eat this, then. Why are you feeding me? If you're worried about it being drugged or something, don't. It's just dried meat. Carefully, I picked up the scrap of meat off the floor and dusted it off. Even by jerky standards, it was dry and almost completely flavorless, too. I'm going to get you a blanket. Why? The question made him pause, tilting his head slightly. Because you're going to get cold otherwise. Well, yeah, but... This isn't me feeling sorry for you or trying to make up for what the boss did. You're just more valuable to us alive. I cowered and immediately he seemed to ease off with a sigh. The boss changing his mind like that, though. Oswald wasn't too pleased with the change of plan. But you kept your end of the bargain. Oswald knows the way off the mountain? Sure does. Almost went off at a run once he knew to get back to the house. That's good, right? Who knows? He shrugged and left, leaving me alone to chew on what little rations I'd been given. Hear him moving about in the other room, even quietly, though he didn't return right away. What I heard instead was someone entering the house, which I assumed was Jack. There was a hushed conversation soon after before I heard footsteps coming towards the door. Sure enough, it was Dominic with the blanket, though much like the jerky, he threw it towards me rather than hand it over. Thanks, did Jack get back? He did. You don't seem too pleased about that. There was a look he gave me. It wasn't frustrated or annoyed like he seemed to be when he entered, but something more subtle, as if he was weighing just how much to tell me. Jack's walk went well. He's cooled off. From what? He didn't like that I got to do everything, even after the boss said he could come show Oswald the way off the mountain. I did notice that he stayed. Why? Want to ask him yourself? I quickly shook my head and Dom chuckled quietly. Well, he and I are going to spend some time together before we turn in. You'd best get some sleep. Doing what? Huh? Some time together doing what? None of your business. Can I ask a question then? No. Please? What do you want? Say that you liked easy jobs, right? Yup. He went to move and I quickly realized that was a question already. Wait, that wasn't my question! If you like easy jobs, and wouldn't it be better if Orlando took over from his dad? Then the jobs would be really easy. They'd be different jobs then. But they'd be easy. Hey, what's taking so long? Jack stuck his head in the doorway before stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. The kid had questions. Seriously? You're blowing me off for Dave? I'm not blowing you off for anyone, alright? What? No, nothing, sorry. Not getting ideas, are we, Dave? Not trying to take my buddy away from me? Oh, no. I already have a boyfriend. Boyfriend? Dom and Jack looked towards one another, almost having a whole conversation with one another with looks and slight motions of their head. Just get some sleep, Dave. If anyone comes to grab you, you'll know. Jack was snickering to himself the whole time they exited the room. Their sounds becoming muffled the moment the door closed. Using the blanket, I tried to get comfortable, but the cold floor wasn't magically solved with a thin sheet that was better than nothing. Though better than nothing didn't mean much when I was still cold, and the dust in the cabin was clogging my nose and throat. If anything, the sheet made a better mask than something to keep me warm. I passed the time just listening, hearing Jack and Dom have a hushed conversation about something before one of them heading outside. Then they swapped and went back to their conversation. My mind drifted over to Memphis in the room opposite, wondering what kind of a man could sleep so soundly while doing so much damage. But this was what my dad became a police officer for, to make the world safe from people like him, though given how things ended up, part of me died inside knowing that the bad guys won that fight. Maybe they'd win the next one, and the next one too. And at some point maybe the good guys would win. Not that it seemed likely the longer I lay there waiting for someone to come and get me. Eventually, though, I did pass out, the exhaustion of the walk finally making me succumb. When I opened my eyes, I was still in the cabin. Part of me wondered if this was some sort of Thanatos-induced dream, but the numbness in my fingers told me it wasn't. My body felt like ice, part of me sore and stiff from how uncomfortable the floor had been. I went to get up and found the rattling of the chain attached to my foot made me wandering anywhere pointless. Pulling out the photo from my pocket, I flipped it over to its backside. Though the message wasn't for me, I tried to pretend it was and take what comfort I could in it. Was it worth trying to escape? Immediately I thought to Jack and how he was able to chase me down. Kind of meant just running for it was a bad idea. Not to mention anything else to agitate Memphis or Dominic would likely end up with me more injured than what I was now. So I waited, wondering when I would see someone again given how quiet the cabin was. Though it didn't take long, the sound of a roar like yawn signaled at least someone was awake. I listened to him heavily walk out of the room opposite and down the hall. I smelled something burning before I picked up the scent of coffee, or maybe not coffee, but something similar anyway. Then those same footsteps wandered back towards my room, stopping just outside of the door. Were they looking at my door or into the other room? Get up! Memphis talking to the others likely, especially given how he growled out the command, and soon after I heard more footsteps moving around. Good morning, Dave! The sing-song voice he used once he'd entered the room made me uneasy, though the tiredness was making it funnily easier to cope. Past Jack, I could see a red tail disappearing out of sight, but little else. Did you sleep all right? Not really. Oh, good. He wandered closer and did something to where the chain connected to the wall. Time to go outside. Someone's here for me? Really? No? Then why are we going outside?
Oh, that's easy enough. Figured you might like some fresh air, and to be honest, the boss wants to talk a few things over privately.
So you're just leaving me outside?
Yep, pretty much.
Jack grabbed the chain and started walking out of the room. And I had to scramble to not have my feet pulled from under me. As we passed the main room, it looked like Memphis was eating something wrapped in foil, tinkering with his gun. No sign of Dominic, though. Not that it changed much as Jack led me outside all the same and over to one of the many trees surrounding us. In a flash, he had the chain looped around the tree and locked, before turning around and heading inside. No breakfast, no coffee for me, it seemed, even though being outside was nicer than the dusty room, even with the chill of morning air. I sat down and hugged my legs, trying to get warm. The idea of getting a shower was something I took comfort in, relishing my memories of hot water and lightly scented soap. Then there was a prospect of a fresh change of clothes. So many things that I took for granted, but here I was just without them. At some point I heard them talking again. Nothing distinguishable, but the three of them were talking over something that had Memphis upset. Jack said little and Dom did most of the talking until the conversation went south and Jack started to talk. The door opened and Dom stepped out, dropping down onto the wooden bench just outside the front door. He looked at me carefully, almost suspicious, but then went to look around the woods as he sat there instead. Again my stomach growled, but even then I wasn't hungry. At the base of the tree, small mushrooms were growing. They looked like the things Orlando had used in cooking before, though it could have just been the color reminding me of him. I smiled, though it faded fast when I realized a reminder that we were so far apart made me miss him. Was he thinking about me? Worried? Was he safe? Were my friends off the mountain yet? Had they made it somewhere safe so they could call for help or not? I sure hope so. You're acting quiet. I almost jumped as I noticed Dom standing in front of me. Not even trying to get away or call for help. You do like making this an easy job. What's the point? If I yell, no one's around. If I run, Jack would catch me, even without this chain keeping me here. You've got that right. So, yeah, it's just a waiting game, really. Have to admit, I wonder what's keeping Osmond from coming back. Seemed pretty keen on returning. He'll come back, right? He wouldn't have just... I couldn't finish the thought, though Dom knew how it ended. It's possible. Wouldn't blame him. Don't you know if they've left already? He shrugged, offering nothing. Where is the exit anyway? Think of making a break for it anyway. Like you'd let that happen. He laughed, nodding slowly. Right about that one, but Boss has said not to say a word about it. Oh yeah, I guess it makes sense, sure. You don't have to be sitting there, you know. Might be a good time to stretch your legs as much as you can. Because you're going to be back into that room after Jack and the boss have finished going at one another. They're fighting? Only a little. What about? Work things. What kind of work things? He got up, shaking his head, giving me one more look before he wandered inside. The moment he got in, though, the raised voices stopped and they resumed as they were when I was put outside. It made me feel more like a pet than anything else. Not a well-looked-after one, but chained to a tree like, well, the obvious. After walking around and looking at anything vaguely interesting within the bounds of my chain, I sat back down as I was to continue waiting. An hour or two might have passed before anyone left the cabin, and I looked up the moment I heard the door open.
Had fun outside?
He didn't wait for my answer, already taking up the chain once more and starting to lead me inside.
It's a wonder no one's come for you, huh? Think they've already left? Boss seems to think so.
Hang on. Take a bit. And let me check something. Yeah. I'm lightheaded for a second. I'm just checking something. Ads as ass. Looks like this is the last day. Yeah, it's looking like this is the last day. I kept quiet, not wanting to think about it or acknowledge what might be the truth. My friends wouldn't just let Oswin abandon me, would they? Or did they think I was dead?
Not happy about it at all either.
Right back into the room I was contained to, chained to the wall, I resumed my listening of what was going on. Just had to have faith that they hadn't left me behind and something else was holding them up. I don't care! Memphis suddenly yelling roused me from my thoughts, and I tried to hone in on what exactly he was yelling about. So what, you're just going to wait for them at the spot? Not going to make much of a difference if they've already left. Without the kid, though? Brutal. Heard something get slammed into the wall and break violently. Another hour! Then another hour we haven't heard anything, we'll get going! I heard footsteps getting closer and I backed up against the wall and tried to make myself look small. Where are you going? To let Dave know what's going to happen, obviously! The delight in his tone made me think of what his face looked like. That crooked, self-satisfied smile that he wore when he was taking some delight in something bad happening. Sure enough, it's what I thought. The moment he walked in the door, I wondered what he was up to. How do you feel about going for a walk? When I didn't respond, he got agitated. I asked you a question! What if someone comes looking for me? Oh, well, they must not think that highly of you, all things considered. Osborne returned last night. They had the night to sleep it off and then come and grab you, so chances are you've just been left behind. But that's just how it is, Dave. Now sit tight, maybe you'll be lucky and someone will come. Otherwise... He snickered as he left, disappearing behind the closed door. So I waited, wondering how long it'd take for the hour to be up. I had no way to track the time anymore, so it all came down to was just waiting, always waiting. People kept leaving the cabin and coming back, doing who knows what. Maybe taking it turns to keep it watch. Or maybe they were up to something else. I have no idea. Still, as bad as it was, I was getting numb to the fear of it all. Maybe I just wanted it to be over. Maybe it was just the long stretches of nothing happening or lack of violence directed my way. A swift kick in my side made me jump. I hadn't realized I'd zoned out. The way he looked at me gave me nothing to work with. Maybe he was annoyed, maybe disgusted, maybe bored. I really couldn't tell. Get him ready. Dom stepped up and started unhooking the chain from the wall, before dragging me to my feet by the arm. Time to have a little walk. Jack stepped up to stand beside Dom as he continued to hold on to my arm. And with a swift punch to the guts, I was winded, doubled over and hoisted over Dom's shoulder. We left the cabin. Memphis was leading the others somewhere and I was just along for the ride. As my vision returned proper, I noticed Jack watching me carefully as he pulled up the rear. He said nothing and I offered nothing back, figuring it was best left to avoid unnecessary noise. Besides, the unhappier he was, the less safe I felt. Which already wasn't really safe. We walked through the woods for a long while, long enough that I didn't know how long we'd been walking, but sure enough, a familiar scene came into view. The watermill. They went inside and I started to worry, more so when I noticed the grin Jack seemed to be wearing. Why had we come here of all places? It smelled dark and damp. I could smell the rust and rotting wood along with the harsh scent of metal. Go find a spot for the kid. I'm going to make a run for supplies. Memphis split off while Dom continued on deeper into the mill. I'm just preparing myself. Down we went, down to where I'd originally found myself, exploring when I'd been avoiding Jack the first time we'd met. Here works. You sure? What's wrong with it? Jack looked to me, then back at Dom. Just here? Really? Dom started chaining me to something in the corner. A pipe or something that looked like it. A few bits of rust here and there. It's out of the way and he's not going anywhere without one of us letting him go. He's not, though. I can stay out of the way. My comment went ignored and Dom rolling his eyes as he turned to Jack and roughly patted him on the head. You want to take it up with the boss? Listen to me, Dom. You know what this place is. I know what this place is. So does the boss. You want to risk Dave finding it out? Figuring it out? Figuring it what out? Dom looked to me, gave me a once-over before locking his gaze with mine. The way off the mountain is through here. Pretty deep, but you'll need to go through here. What are you doing? What's he going to do about it? Relax, little. You're not going anywhere. Where are you, Dave? I quickly shook my head, answering anything but seemed silly. I'm gonna go relax. Do what you want. Started to wander off, Jack caught between gesturing at me and trying to get its attention, all while trying to find the words. Hold that thought, Dave! He went after Dom, though I could see he pulled a knife from somewhere as he rounded the corner out of sight. Rather than sit down, I figured I'd stand for a bit. The dirt and grime was a different sort than in the cabin, and I wanted to stay as clean as possible. It was silly and I knew it, but I valued being clean. I valued what it meant to be able to freely take a shower, and right now I just didn't know when I'd be able to again. Hear them scuffle about, even armed with a knife. There wasn't panicked yelling, growling, or even a sign either of them were injured. If anything, the sound of amused laughter threw me as it sounded closer to them playing. The air was stale and I missed my friends. I missed being outside, even in that drafty room in the cabin. Even with the hooks nearby, at least the air was fresh. A few minutes passed and I heard footsteps again and craned my neck to see where they were coming from. Though the way things echoed made it hard. Or close to impossible, as I didn't realize he was standing behind me until he'd come to a complete stop. "Hell are you doing?" "Nothing!" He looked me over again. Anger, frustration, it was hard to tell. "Sit down and keep quiet." When I didn't know as he said, he roughly grabbed me by the head and slammed me into the nearby machines. I was dazed and immediately collapsed onto the ground as he chuckled. "Stay down, if you know it's good for you." He wandered off in the direction that Jack had gone, chuckling to himself, holding something in his hand. I didn't know what it was, some sort of device, but I didn't get much more than that. I could smell blood, and bringing my hand up to where it hit my head against the machine, I could feel wetness. It was my blood. I could figure that much out, not that I was conscious for long enough to do anything about it. The lack of food, water, and good sleep was taking its toll. I just let myself take what excuse to sleep I could. When I woke up, I could feel the air choking me from heat and smoke. But like any other time, I was just along for the ride. My body ached and I struggled to my feet. I was alive and seemed to be glad about it, but nothing about what was happening made sense. Where were the others? Why was the house on fire? My mind immediately went to Orlando, but I couldn't see him. Someone else caused the fire? More importantly, why wasn't I moving? Instead, I seemed to start to cry. The tears were evaporating soon after they left my eyes. Dave! I turned quickly, scanning the fire for Orlando's voice. "This way, hurry!" Coughing, I struggled to find where Tyson's voice was coming from, but I couldn't see him either. "Dave! Come on, you can do it!" Roswell and Dean had the same problem. I had no idea where they were. "Leave, Dave!" "There you are!" "I said, leave!" Why was I looking for Thanatos? Why was he so intent on me leaving without him? The house was groaning around us. Pieces of the ceiling were falling away. "It's now or never!" I looked down to my legs, injured, burned, but I struggled towards the front door. I built up speed, and as the way out came into view, a searing pain sent me back into the darkness. I didn't know where I was, or if I made it out, just that the burning house was gone. I felt cold next. I could hear rain, then that too stopped, replaced with the sound of someone snoring softly next to me and the TV playing in the same room. After that was the sound of someone happily humming and the smell of fresh bread, then the loud ambience that came with an arcade or maybe a bowling alley. Was I dying? Was this what I was experiencing in my final moments? As I came to, I was still on the ground where I'd landed after Memphis had shoved me. I felt gross, my head was hurting and the world was spinning. Reckon the boss made the right call. Dom's voice echoed out from somewhere far off, or if it was nearby, I had no way of knowing. Not really. "Dom, buddy, pal, friend." What were they talking about? What was so familiar? "You can just say yes." He's about to say that he's bored. "Look, I don't know, don't care. I just want to know when we can get some action. I'm so bored." Could always go say hello to your friend if he's conscious. Sure enough, Dom said it word for word. Soon after was Jack making some kind of creepy, happy sound that made me sick. Neat trick. My first stood on end as I turned my head toward where the voice had come from. It was quiet, but somehow that just made it that much scarier. "You've been listening in on us?" His voice was still kept low, and when I didn't answer, he grabbed me by the collar and lifted me off my feet into the air. "I asked you a fucking question!" "Yes!" "At least you have the common sense not to lie to me." Just as roughly as he grabbed me, he let me drop and I crumbled to my knees. "Where is Oswin?" I looked up at him, the first question I dared to pose. Late. I wanted to ask something else, but shut my mouth. He wasn't going to answer, at the very least, not like me asking. Given he'd let me lay here bleeding for who knows how long, I didn't want to risk getting injured further. Oh, Orlando's going to go apeshit. I have a feeling that Orlando's going to go apeshit. Then he left. Somewhere deep into the mill, and I felt like crying. Too scared to make a sound, though, I just fell to my side and lay there trembling. Where were my friends? Why hadn't anyone come for me yet? How long had it been? "Hey, Dave! You awake?" I heard him, but didn't react. My mind was elsewhere, like he was at the end of Path B. Yeah, I think he might do that. I hope he does that again. "Oh, you're no fun! You know, I was going to make a snack. Figured I should check if you were hungry." The way he asked made it clear that he was teasing or being sarcastic. Or some combination that wouldn't have ended up with me getting food regardless. My stomach betrayed me, the gurgle of hunger loud and clear even if I hadn't said anything. The only thing I'd had to eat was jerky after all. "Oh, I see. Will you sit right there? Will you sit tight then? And I'll be right back." He wandered off laughing to himself, and much like everything else, it echoed until he'd gone far enough away that it was just a vague noise. And that was it. I didn't see him again for what appeared to be hours. I was starting to get thirsty, hungry, and sleepy all at once. From how deep we were, I had no way of telling just how late it had gotten. This your fault. Sorry, boss. If that pig beat us here, there'll be hell to pay. Maybe they're still at the house. We'll send Jack on a run later. Scope the place out. Not worried about Benson. About that. If I had to guess, he was thinking about something, though the sinister chuckle that came after meant it wasn't anything good. I don't think it'll be a problem. If he gets himself killed, it's his own fault. But boss, he thinks he can mess with me while he's bored, then he can go make himself useful. Getting late, isn't it? You think I care? Silence said it all. If Jack died, Memphis didn't care. I would have thought the prospect of him dying would have made me happy, but instead it just felt empty. It wouldn't change anything. I would still be here. I'd still be left with the question why they'd left me here overnight. We wouldn't be off the mountain, and it was made worse knowing that I was so close to the exit. My stomach started to growl again, and I just curled up tighter. Someone had to be coming soon. They had to be. If not, what was keeping Tyson or Dean? Why hadn't Orlando said anything to them? Was Roswell okay? Was Sal keeping the group together? Did Haas have a plan on what to do? As I lay there, I felt myself start to sleep back into unconsciousness. Silently I laughed, silently I cried until I passed out again. It wasn't restful sleep, just the fact that my body was just that exhausted. I was even semi-aware of the grime I was laying in, but I long given up on being clean. I just didn't have the hope that I could avoid it anymore. Not from how much I could feel my body throb in discomfort. When I next opened my eyes, things were quiet. My throat felt dry, my arms weak, and they were undoubtedly darker than I remembered. Hello? Someone moved nearby. I could hear them get up and start to walk towards me. Is someone there? It was hard to see, but the bulk and shape was unmistakable. You came? He reached out for me and sat me up, but the moment he opened his mouth was the moment I knew something was wrong. Drink this. Huh? I blinked and it was Dominic. What hope I had clung to in those last few moments shattering. Come on, drink. Tipped a plastic bottle back and I drank. Water, thankfully, or at least it seemed to be. Can't have you dying on us. I wanted more, but he pulled the bottle away and put the cap back on it. What are you doing? Making sure he doesn't die of thirst. Does Memphis know about this? The boss will thank me for not having to figure out what to do with an extra body. Extra? You've been having fun without me? Jack, now's not the time. Oh, I think now's a perfect time. I looked between all three of them, wondering what was going to happen next. Get him up! Dom hesitated, but Jack was upon me in a flash, dragged me up just enough so that when Dominic finally took over, it was more to hold me upright. We walked back the way we'd come, up to where we'd come in. And then outside. The cold nipped at my skin under my fur, but compared to the depths of the mill, the air was clean and I took in a deep breath, breathing out hoping it'd clear my head. So it turns out no one's coming for you, kid. I paused, looking over to Memphis, worried. Maybe they just got out. Maybe they're fine, and there's a reason they didn't come. Unfortunately for you, I don't like waiting. Boss, we're going back to the cabin? Oh, we are. Got everything I need back there now, anyway. Oh, come on, Dave! Let's get you locked back up. I have a better idea, Jack. We're going to let Dave here go. We're going to let him head off on back to the mansion to see for himself what the holdup is. You are? We are? And then what? Then if he makes it back, he can let the others know we're coming. If he doesn't, well, that just suits me fine, too. Took a few steps towards me and I stumbled backward, this time managing to stay on my feet. But I'm not taking any chances this time. It's about time something went my way. But I still want to have fun with it. What do you mean, boss? Jack, why don't you give Dave here a little going away present? And make it hurt. I looked from Memphis to Jack, then to Dom, then to that grin on Jack's face. Hold still, Dave! This will only take a second. Before I'd even registered what was going on, Jack had stabbed me in the side. The knife went in fast, and immediately I felt both cold and hot, wind being taken out of me until he'd taken the knife out. Now run along, Dave. If you're lucky, you might make it back before you bleed out. My vision started to blur, and my hand went to my side to try and stop the bleeding. I had to get back. I had to seek medical attention. There was no sense in trying to get back into the mill and find a way out that way. At least outside I had the moonlight to help, or even the river. Inside was darker and more dangerous than go wandering around in blind. As I wandered away to the woods, I heard Memphis laughing. I could hear Jack cackling to himself alongside. Nothing from Dominic, but that hardly mattered. I just had to get help. Help! Everything looked the same. Everything was the same to me, given it was just tree after tree, step after step in a dark forest. I didn't even know which way was forward. Help! Anyone? There was no sense in keeping quiet anymore. I left those that we knew were dangerous behind me. Every step I took, I just had to be closer towards someone better. At least I hoped so. What time was it? What would my friends say once I got back? What was going to happen next? I just had to keep thinking things through, so that I kept moving. Headed towards the sound of water, possibly because it was of thirst, maybe because it was just a landmark I could use to try and navigate. Though even as the river came into view, the only thing I could register was the pain coursing up my side. How much blood had I lost? How much more blood could I afford to lose? Breathing hard started to become hard, and I wasn't sure if the cold in my chest was from the night air or from my wound. Walking along the bank of the river, heading downstream, I thought back on my life. This vacation was the most recent event, the most recent development in my life that seemed to have shaped me in what I assumed would have been a great way. For everything bad that happened, a bunch of good happened too. Immediately, the fact that Tyson found a friend and seemed to slowly become accepted into the group made me happy. I worried for him for so long, but things seemed to finally go well for him. As for Haas, I'm glad that he was still fitting in. For being someone that I'd only known for a year, I knew that I was around a good person while I was with him. Then there was Dean and Orlando. As much of a mess as I'd made in the past year and a half, they'd both done their best to constantly make me smile. Orlando especially, as he's been trying for years. Not to say that Dean had tried less, he just had a different method. Though all three of us had our troubles, the two of them made it feel normal. I thought back to Roswell and Sal. I felt I could trust both of them, just being wiser or at the very least smarter than me. I had faith that they'd do right by me if I ever got in trouble. Though, given my current circumstances, I wish that something had just happened to prevent them from coming through with the rescue plan. Or if not a rescue plan, they had a contingency for me not being saved. Shaken from my thoughts, I remembered where I was. Water. I just had to follow the water. If I did, I could probably find my way back to the mansion. I'd done it once before, after all. I can keep going. I have to keep going. Stopping only to take in another deep breath of air, I continued on. A feeble whine escaped my mouth as I struggled to keep moving, half collapsing on a tree for support as I continued on. As I continued on, I heard a voice calling for me, somewhere far off, but it was my name. Stopped if only to see if I could tell which direction it was coming from, but it was hard to say. It was even harder to pick out who the voice belonged to, but they sounded worried. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a brief glimpse of something bright moving through the trees and thought it was Jack. When I focused, I knew it wasn't. Disappearing behind the trees, I started to follow where it went. The only bearing I had given the river was all I had, and I knew it didn't run alongside the house. As I approached where I thought it would be, I was greeted with more darkness. These the first couple of times. Last, however, I came to stop in a small glade with that figure standing there, as if waiting for me. Hello? Hold on, let me cry for a little bit. Oh, God. I became aware of how hard my heart was beating in my chest, and how hard I was breathing. Dad? He turned to look at me, waiting for me to get closer, but said nothing. Dad, is it? I didn't have the strength to reach out and touch him, stopping just shy of being able to reach out. Hey, sport. What's happening? Why are you here? You needed me. Though you're looking a bit rough there, buddy. What happened? He chuckled, though I could hear the worry. He still hadn't moved, and so I didn't either, just in case. A lot. I can see that. I need to get back to the mansion. I need help. I'm bleeding. Yeah. Well, better follow me then. He faded away, dissolving into the dark, only to reappear somewhere further on as if waiting for me to follow. It was like this most of the way forward, up until I stopped to catch my breath again. Dad, wait! I can't go that fast. Sure you can! He called back, but his voice was somewhere else far off instead. If I thought I could, then I would at least try. I had to try. Dad? What's the matter, sport? I'm sorry. What for? I'm sorry for not being a better son, for... I flinched as he reached out to touch me, but the contact never came. So he just pulled his hand back and shook his head. Don't go thinking you were a failure as a son, Dave. You died because of me saving you. It's the same thing. It is not the same thing. I made this choice and I'd make it again. When I found out that you were going to die, I was given a choice to save you and I took it. But you died. And is that so bad? I was devastated. Mom still hasn't recovered. I doubt I have either. I was building myself up to yelling, but the more I did, it hurt my throat dry. I just... Why didn't you say anything? What would you have wanted me to say, Dave? What would you have wanted me to say to your mother? Just, you left almost without saying goodbye. Left as if it was any other day with me and Tyson just waiting for you to come home, and you never did. He disappeared again. Was I hallucinating, or was it actually him? A ghost, maybe, but at the very least I saw him appear somewhere further on as if guiding me forward. Dad! He didn't stop, but I was getting frustrated, just as well as it was keeping my focus off the pain and the tiredness. Dad, wait! But he didn't. Instead, just walking forward. I have something I need to tell you! He stopped, slowly turned around to face me and waited for me to catch up. What's up, son? I have a boyfriend. That's great, son! If you don't make it, you need to tell them. I'm not telling them anything, Dave. You'll have to tell them yourself. In fact, introduce me after you do. And he was gone again, leaving me to pick up pace in order to get back to my friends. My head hurt, my feet hurt, everything hurt. I found myself braced against another tree as I breathed in deep. I can keep going. Just a little bit further. There was a light haze to the woods now. Wasn't sure if it was because it was getting closer to morning or lights from the house, but I was willing to take it as a sign. Dad, we're close. I just decided this. Maybe if I didn't just hope, then maybe it would come true. You think so? Yeah. Can you smell that? I couldn't smell much of anything from having spent the past day between a dusty cabin and a cellar surrounded by rusty metal. Smells like home. Home? Like our home? Yeah. But that's impossible. We're not at home. We're on a mountain. Maybe someone else's home then? Dad, you know where we are. The mansion. Yeah. Dave, do you understand what's happening right now? I don't know. I had some ideas and some hopes. Then with that worries, but I wasn't certain. I'm not here, buddy. I know. You died. I died. You died a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, but yes, you're pretty sure I'm dead. Then why are you showing up now? Am I going insane? Who isn't a little bit like peanut butter, son? Huh? Nutty. I'm just going to... I cracked a smile. Then that smile became a chuckle. Then a full-blown laugh. That joke was real bad. You came up with it. Maybe I'm more like you than I thought. And I couldn't be prouder. With one last smile, he faded away, leaving me in the quiet of the forest. Having followed for so long, I was left without anything to guide me forward. I stood there in the dark, staring at the spot where my dad had been only moments before. He was gone. I just wanted to say goodbye. Wanted to smile at the irony of me forgetting to do it a second time, but I couldn't. I wanted to keep walking forward, but I couldn't. My feet wouldn't move. At least I was upright. Is anyone there? Silence. That's all that came back as the answer. Okay. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. I needed to sit down. The tiredness and the loss of blood was too much. I just needed to rest. Well, I need to get back, but I wanted to rest. Let me just... Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out the photo again. I love you. The words weren't for me, but they were what I wanted to hear. They were what I wanted to say. I love you so, so much. Breath caught in my chest and I started to cry. I didn't bother to wipe them away, instead thinking about my friends, my family, anyone and everyone important to me. I knew what was coming, and while I wasn't ready, I had accepted it. I sat there, waiting. Any moment now something would happen. I'd either slip away or something else would happen to make me question if I hadn't already passed on. Huh? Dave. As he reached out for me and edged forward as if he was scared I'd break, I could see it in his eyes, even in the dark, that he was terrified. I'm... okay. No, you're not. I'll be fine. Really? I tried to flash him a smile, but it didn't come. Instead, just a pained grimace that caused him to reach out and cut my head. I could feel him. He was warm, even against the bitter cold of the night. Can you stand? Shaking my head, carefully he picked me up. It only made me cry and cling on tight, having felt that I'd finally been saved. Warm. He was warm. I thought I wouldn't find you. But you did. Yeah. He held me against his back and carried me. Each step careful, but at the same time I could tell that he was trying to hurry. Are we going back to the mansion? Yeah, just keep talking to me. What about... Anything, please, Dave, just keep talking. Tell me about your boyfriend. You remember Orlando? Yeah. He's my boyfriend. That's all I've got to say. Come on, Dave. He's really sweet and nice. He's loved me for so long that it's strange. Strange how? That it happened. That his family did this to me. It's not his fault. I know. You'll need to tell him that when you see him again. He already knows. I don't blame him. He needs to hear it, though. Do you think he'll try baking me something again? To say sorry? Probably. Went to chuckle but groaned instead. The pain from moving so much was catching up with me. Can we take a break? We have to keep moving. Please, just a small one. He set me down gently and lay me back against a tree. The moment I could feel the ground under me, I sighed and looked up at my dad. Thanks for coming to save me. God. Oh fuck. I couldn't leave you out here there, Dave. Still, I never thought I'd see you again. It's, Breathing was becoming more difficult and I reached out for him. Funny, Dave. I'm just so glad that you came, Dad. He said nothing, but I could tell his expression went grim. Dad? Dave, What? I'm not Dad. What? My eyes slowly adjusted and I saw Tyson. He was crying. He was... Dave, I'm here. Ty... I couldn't leave you out there. I couldn't just wait. Thank you, Ty. Just hold on a little longer, alright? We're almost back. Ty... I saw Dad. I thought he was... I know, Dave. It's alright. I'm sorry. Why the fuck are you apologizing? I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm just... happy that... That what? I didn't get left behind. I'd never leave you behind. Not now, not before, not ever. You saved me from the cold, so I was going to do the same. Fuck what Oswald said. Fuck what anyone else said. I love you that damn much. Yay. So I'm going to pick you up and take you back to the mansion, alright? I'm going to patch you up and get you home, okay? Okay. But don't you dare give up just yet. Now's not the time to be giving up, Dave. Ty... Just a little longer, Dave. That's all we need. Please. Oh God. Dave? He'll be back soon. Easy for you to say. Both of them went in there and we've seen neither. It's not like you're even worried. It's like you're not even worried. Of course I'm worried. There's nothing more we can do, is there? We could go in there ourselves. David's out there and we're meant to sit and wait. That's why Dean and Tyson went out. It's why Dean went out. Tyson just went on his own because he's stubborn. But he was right. Go on. Say I'm wrong. You're not wrong. But I didn't want to run the risk of getting hurt and knowing that upset Dave even more. But, no buts. We just have to have faith that we'll see one of them soon. And we've heard nothing from Hoff, Benson, or Oswin? Not since you asked me 5 minutes ago. But something could have changed. Then go inside and find out. I imagine they're still going over a plan to get everyone out safely. But we know the exit. And what about Oswin? We just leave him behind to make Benson sad?
Yeth?
Orlando! You're right, sorry. Before you know it, we'll have news. Wait, do you hear that?
Ivadine? Tython?
I'm not... Oh no.
No! No, this can't be happening! No! No!
I tried, I really tried.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'll take full responsibility for this, but I had to see. I underestimated, what I mean is... I can't believe that it's over, though. The experiment failed, and it's my fault. Hopefully next time will be better. Not that it helps now. It's never easy, though. It's never easy to tell you that I failed. Another countless amount of years ahead of me before another attempt. Feeling I've let you down. Sometimes I wonder if it's been worth it seeing you like this. Sometimes I wonder if there wasn't an easy way out, but yet again we're just left with this. Not that you can remember it as well as I can. Please say something, anything! Is there anything I can say or do? Or is it better that I just... Sorry. Just promise me that the next time around you won't remember this. Promise me that you'll leave it to me to stop this mistake from happening twice. Is that okay, Master? Okay.
Oh, hell no. Oh. Hell no. I fucking called it!
That day was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The pain, the guilt, everything hitting me all at once. After so long of everything being planned out to just prevent just that, Dave was dead. The memory of it was fuzzy. What happened next? Going downstairs, seeing him limp in Tyson's arms, Orlando wailing into the night sky. It was awful. We were so busy thinking about every other way that it could have gone bad, and the simplest outcome was what happened. But to make matters worse, I couldn't remember the details. What other bits and pieces were left were up to Thanatos to remember.
Hang on, let me just save real quick. Hang on, I want to see where this goes.
It all came back to that one memory I had. A strong memory from a long time ago, and I only know it as one because Thanatos told me. Worst part is, I could still feel the fire prickling at my skin and fur.
I'm not going to keep doing that. I could still smell the smog and ash clogging my nose and making it hard to breathe. I could hear Tyson screaming up above, and I could taste the blood in my mouth from where I'd coughed it up. Amidst the heat and pain, I knew where I was, I just didn't know why. Thanatos was there, but...
Are you there? Hypnos?
He wasn't talkative. He wasn't really much of anything back then, apparently. Just watching, waiting, listening.
I think I'm the last one alive.
As much as the smog made it hard to breathe, I was able to laugh. A cold and bitter laugh despite the fire raging in the house. It was a cruel reality that had landed us here. Events far outside our control.
Hey, did you know this was going to happen?
He didn't give anything away, instead just watching still.
I need a favor, please.
He was listening.
If I die, when I die, if you can save them, if you can save my friends.
My vision was fading fast, but pleading for salvation from a robotic rat was all I had left. If not now, then for some time later. I knew what he was and what he was meant to do. So if there was any chance, no matter how small, I had to gamble on it and hope that things wouldn't turn out this way.
Hypnos, despite everyone else dying, you're going to live on, aren't you? You're not going to die, you're just going to...
He came closer. I assumed it was a show of affection, that he knew what was happening.
You should have been called Thanatos.
Thanatos. He mimicked my voice back at me, the slight incline of his head gesturing that he parroted it back as a question.
A god of death, not sleep, but if you can't die, then...
I am a god of death.
So please, Thanatos, save my friends.
I opened my eyes slowly. My head was hurting. So, good morning.
Thanatos, I'm not getting up.
But Roswell, it's time to get up. I could hear him scrambling from the floor up to the top of my bed, and I rolled over in an attempt to ignore him.
I'm not ready to be awake yet.
Sure you are.
What day is it?
Good question. Let me check. Hear the murmuring of him checking his memory for a few seconds before proudly declaring the answer. I have been measuring this as the 23rd day of this iteration's experiment.
Ugh. So yesterday...
Oh yeah, I totally knocked you and Dave out.
Why?
I thought it'd be funny.
Yeah. Hilarious.
Oh, lighten up. You're fine. Dave's probably fine.
What do you mean, probably? Has he not woken up since?
No.
I swear if you've done something to him.
That'd get us nowhere. You know I wouldn't. On purpose anyway. Do you remember what happened after I put you under yesterday?
More or less, I think.
Tell me.
I woke up mid-afternoon sometime before dinner. Oswin was here injecting me with something and I felt a little better.
What else?
I slept for a little more. He gave me another dose and honestly, I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. Just waking up.
Alright, good. So we know that's a way to get you up and going again.
Hey, I need you to check something for me. It might take a little bit, but it's important.
What?
I need you to check your memories for when Dave dies again.
Because...
I resonated again, somehow, for some reason.
Well, don't look at me, I didn't do anything.
I know you didn't, and don't need you to explain it again either.
I'll explain it to Dave then.
Is it happening to him as well?
I think so, hard to say. But it's no problem, I can totally go check my memories for all that bad stuff. What are you going to do in the meantime?
Go back to sleep?
While I do all the work, fat chance something like that happen! He kicked me lightly in an attempt to move me out of bed. Move your ass! You know I can't move it up myself, otherwise I would.
You're not my mom.
Or your dad.
Right. So
get up. Please?
What's wrong with sleeping in a little longer?
If I have to be up working on this experiment, then you do too.
Thanatos, you don't even sleep.
I sleep. Enough.
Spoken like a true college student.
Coming from the guy who doesn't know what that's like. I smirked, though it faded fast upon remembering why that was.
True.
Sorry, I was autopilot for a moment.
It's fine. Do you know who else is awake?
Just us, Oswald and Benson. Everyone should be in their rooms if nothing has deviated from what's happened before.
Alright.
I kicked my feet out lightly from under the cover to start to get up, pushing myself to a sit and then rolling forward until my feet touched the carpet. Where are you going?
Do you have a talk with Oswin? I'll be quick.
Fair enough, let me know when that happens, alright?
You're just going to stay here after all?
Well, if the bed is free, maybe I'll use it to get some sleep in. I rolled my eyes as I changed out of my pajamas and into proper clothes.
Please do the search for me, it's important.
Don't worry, I'll get it done after I get my voice set. Wait, I've been using the wrong voice for Thanatos. Fuck.
Don't worry, I'll get it done after I get my voice set correctly for Dave. You're really not letting up over that.
It's what Dave knows. If I did anything else, it'd just ruin the fun.
You're weird.
Have fun talking to Oswin then. Before you go, how's my voice? Sufficiently ominously robotic?
It's very unnecessary.
I'll work on it. If I find out anything, I'll come find you. I'd forgotten just how cold the house could be so early in the morning. Many times in my childhood I'd gotten up early and wandered around. Having the house to yourself would do that. No other kids around, no parents, though Benson and Oswin were close enough. Benson seemingly always watching, Oswin occasionally hovering off to the side as if I was some strange creature. Even the hidden passages, I knew them all, though knowing them all was not all that impressive when there were only the three. The one here, the one in the basement, and the one just outside the kitchen. They all linked up anyway. With the exception of this strange door that looked like what Thanatos had also existed in the library but on different systems. Thankfully, the code to this door was easy enough. Though I should be doing the interlog with Roswell's voice.
Though I didn't really understand the full weight of why. Part of me didn't care enough to ask. Mom was Oswin's sister, after all. At least they were close enough that they considered each other family. Why her name was the password to this store in particular was a mystery to me. Not that it really mattered anyway. The whole concept of family was a strange one to me. With Dad working long hours and Mom doing the same, I was used to just spending time alone. Keep the place manageable enough without being messy. Get my homework done, simple stuff. More often than not, I'd found myself dropped off in this very house for prolonged periods of time. It set my whole school by the only other bore here, though chores were handled mostly by Benson. As I stepped into the lab, I could see Oswin there already looking to the door. The place had been closed off, but a quick entry of the door code into the panel beside it released the lock.
Good morning.
I grumbled something back and wandered closer, dropping myself into the open chair beside him.
What? Not happy to see me?
It's not that.
Ah, well then.
He always seemed so energetic when we were alone. It's almost like dealing with a tired Orlando or maybe a slightly caffeinated Dave. He hurried over to the door to the lab and locked it again, ensuring we had privacy.
Did you want to see a magic trick? I've been working on a new one. What the fuck?
Magic trick? Now?
I thought you liked magic tricks.
I do, but of all the things you could be working on... The wind had been knocked out of his sails, and he sat down heavily in his chair, swiveling as he thought.
So, no magic then. Fine.
Sorry, if things were a little different, I'd be interested, but...
But...
I had a dream last night, and I don't know what to think about it.
Different to your other dreams?
If Thanatos was here, he'd correct me and say it was a memory.
Ah, I see.
So, they're getting worse, or maybe not worse, but more vivid.
I can't say I'm a fan of that. What do you require of me?
To listen?
Alright.
I breathed in deep through my nose as I gathered my thoughts. Looking around the lab, I tried to focus on anywhere other than the pair of eyes staring at me. I don't know if what we've been doing... What I mean is...
You can just say it. Thanatos isn't here.
I'm having second thoughts. I'm wondering if maybe he lied.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that he wasn't invented to specifically double-cross you, or even really think of half the things he does.
Right, he was just meant to be a friend.
But now you have questioned it, other things are a bit muddied, right?
One way to say it, sure. From one of his drawers, he pulled out a small piece of wrapped candy and handed it over to me. After I'd taken it, he grabbed one for himself and started unwrapping it idly.
You know, Roswell, things are bad enough that if you wanted to stop, you could still stop them.
I know, but what would the cost be?
Not one I'm willing to pay, mind you.
He regarded me over his glasses with the piece of candy still half unwrapped in his fingers, mine untouched.
It's unlike you to turn down a piece of candy.
I unwrapped it the rest of the way and put it in my mouth. Something fruity and sugary, the faintest hint of tartness that made my mouth pucker as I rolled it to rest against my cheek.
That's better.
Oz, just... You being here makes things so much more complicated. If you weren't, I could have just, gotten it done, lived with the guilt for a couple of weeks, and that'd be that. I'd be dead, but everyone else would be alive.
It's not as if me being here has really stopped your attempts, however. Even attempting Benson's murder, no doubt.
Excuse me? He looked to the door as if making sure it was still closed before sliding closer to me, bringing his voice low.
I know your determination to save your friends is that strong, but you'd willingly shoot Benson? You'd even consider making him a target?
Does it matter? Dave stopped, and it's not as if he's one of my friends. He grabbed me hard by the ear, hard enough that I squealed in pain, but I was just as quickly pulled into his chest in some awkward hug.
Now you listen here, boy. Benson is family. You do well to respect your elders.
Why the pause?
To be frank, I don't think he'd let you kill him. Unless he, let you kill him.
And if he did, where's the problem? You said yourself that you didn't want me making my friends murderers, or me living with the guilt of killing one of them myself.
I know you weren't raised to be that warped in your logic. Where's your compassion?
You try dealing with these nightmares of seeing everyone dead, Oz. How about you deal with the prospect that countless times you don't even remember you're responsible for the deaths of those you care about?
Watch your tone!
The worst part, I still don't know if I'm doing it right. If I screw up, everyone dies. I'm stuck between watching everyone die and choosing to save any number of them I can by doing awful things.
Shit.
He relaxed and I pulled away, dropping back into my chair. It's not fair, but what choice do I have?
You don't need to tell me that you always have a choice, Roswell.
I just wish the choice was better.
So do I, Roswell. So do I.
I should maybe go get coffee or breakfast or something.
Before you go, are you still fine with coming with me into the woods?
Me? Sure, it makes sense, so I don't know why you'd want to double-check that.
Because it's polite. Also, I just want to make sure that you're actually wanting to come. I have something important for you.
Then give it to me now?
Not while Thanatos is around.
He's always going to be around. He's always going to be around long after I die. You die, long after everyone dies, and remember and tell me anything relevant anyway.
Not this. This is something I'd rather you not hear from him, in any loop of this universe.
You're being weird, but fine. If Thanatos was going to be weird, I guess you get a pass too.
Why, thank you, my dearest nephew. Though on the topic of Thanatos, where is he now?
In my room, checking his memory for me. He seemed to contemplate on that, almost wanting to say something, but he held back. Even if he wasn't going to be prying, then I wasn't going to offer anything. Did you want anything from the kitchen, Oz? I could hear him mumble under his breath, something about me calling him uncle, but I ignored it and waited for his reworked answer.
No, thank you. I shall see you later, Roswell.
I made my way back through the passage and closed it behind me once I'd emerged from the basement. It was quiet, though I could hear movement. Had the others started to arise already? Had something happened? Each step I made heading upstairs towards the foyer was made carefully just in case. Peering around the corner of where I'd emerged to check who was about, my breath caught in my chest briefly and I pulled my head back. It was Dave, pacing back and forth lost in thought. I just watched him for a bit, wandering around without having noticed me yet. At some point, I figured I'd waited long enough and made myself known. Dave?
Roswell?
He quickly looked around for someone, or something, and sighed in relief upon not seeing whatever it was he was seeing.
For a moment I thought... Well...
Thought what?
Thanatos. After yesterday?
Ah, that, right. I could see the expression he was giving me. Somewhere between suspicious and concerned, but honestly, I had my own worries. Had he figured it out? Had Thanatos let something slip? With how often he had been partnering up with Dave, I just had to trust he had things under control.
Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling, well, better than I did yesterday, that's for sure.
Do you know why?
Shy of bed rested, likely be something Oswin drugged me with. Said it'd take some time to kick in, but it should get me going.
Wait. When did that happen?
It seemed Thanatos was telling the truth. Dave was fine, but must have been out of it up until this morning. When, I guess it'd have been sometime after you found me in the rec room?
After he knocked me out, you mean?
After he knocked us both out.
But you woke up sometime after that?
Yeah, to Oswin injecting me with something.
He really needs to stop doing that.
Given how much better I'm feeling by comparison, I think I'd be willing to give him a pass on it.
So, no Thanatos and no idea why he did what he did.
No Thanatos? Was Dave expecting to see Thanatos? Had nothing at all happened to him between what had happened back then and now? Maybe keeping him unconscious was the way to go after all. At the very least, he couldn't do anything to put himself in danger.
Roswell? Sorry, I just like the yeen.
Sorry, maybe. That's a short answer anyway.
And the long answer.
Do you remember how much about what happened when you came to the rec room yesterday?
I showed up, you had a medal, and said,
It was a trap, yeah. I wandered over to the stairs and sat down, cradling my chin to try and puzzle out how Thanatos had thought guiding me there in a drug-addled haze was a good idea. Admittedly, I don't remember how I got to the rec room, just that I was in kind of a daze. I remember running into Thanatos somewhere just outside my room, though, and he must have led me there.
And the medal.
That part I remember. He handed it over to me shortly after I collapsed into the beanbag.
All right. And the medal is... where now?
In my room, but when he handed it over, I remember him saying something like, now we just have to wait for the hyena to show up. And a few minutes later, you did.
You knew it was a trap just from that.
You tell me, Dave. I don't think throwing you a party upon your arrival was the plan.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Internally, I breathed a sigh of relief. If there was one constant I could plan around, it was how readily Dave was willing to let things go. Infuriating for any number of people, sure, but really convenient when the poor guy kept putting himself in harm's way. I didn't think the trap was going to be a literal sound trap, though.
What does he get out of knocking us both out, though? And why was I out until this morning, but you were woken up?
I couldn't tell you. Maybe because I was being medicated, and medicated was why I woke up, not that I was awake for long before sleeping again. It was something I'd have to bring up with Thanatos again. There wasn't a good reason why Dave would be unconscious for that much longer than I did unless he'd have done something different to him. Given we were both in the room when the sound trap went off, I had no idea.
Remind me to take a page out of Tyson's book when I see him again. Thanatos needs to stop being a jerk and knocking people out.
Catch him off guard near an open window and you might be able to enjoy a bit of defenestration.
I'd probably be fine with throwing him out at the window, if only once.
I could feel my eyebrows go up, the faintest of smiles crossing my face. You know what that word means before coffee, even?
Yeah.
He didn't seem convinced, almost confused somehow as to how he knew the word. Maybe he just got lucky, maybe he'd forgotten he knew. But he ended up just shrugging it off. So, what happens now?
I did have something I wanted to talk to you about, actually. Are you really fine with going into the woods later with Oswin? For the Dominic thing, I mean.
Before I could reply, he shook his head, continuing within the brief pause he'd allowed himself to breathe.
I know it makes sense for you to go. I know that it's all relative as far as it being fine, too. What's your plan for if something goes wrong? Being lucky isn't going to cut it.
Where's this coming from all of a sudden? You're not normally so alert, or,
It's important, Roswell.
If you must know, yeah, I was counting on my luck. I don't think anything else we can do really compares to what an organized crime family has as far as resources go. I could see him go to speak, but I shook my head, cutting him off much in the same way he did to me. You'll have Benson and the others. You can make a plan for the worst, but there's no sense in worrying too much about it. Just have some faith, Dave.
Faith.
He repeated the same word and shook his head, awkwardly standing there still rather than joining me sitting on the stairs. Hey, can I ask a favor?
Sure.
I feel that with everything going on, it might be a good idea to keep tabs on Orlando.
Alright, what about you, though?
Me? What about me?
What are you planning on doing between now and when you leave?
Well, I suppose I should get a contingency plan down. Talk to Sal and Tyson, too, while I think about it.
How come?
They'll likely be able to help Benson the most. Dean is the backup in case something goes wrong out in the woods. Rescue mission stuff.
Alright. But can we get coffee? I haven't had any yet, and this is a lot to sit on while we wait for the others. We're going to leave off here tonight. I'm just going to mentally prepare. Yeah, that was a lot. An almost 2-hour stream, I know. Shocking. Anyways, stay safe. Have a good night. I think we're still on path A, and I will see you all tomorrow.